Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
Well, Geoff, very, very strange weekend, both for you and I, as a West Ham fan and a Tottenham fan, both recovering for different reasons. But before we get on to that, your trivia question.
Okay, and thank you to my son Nick, who came up with a question this week. What did Arne Gudjonsson and Ida Gudjonsson do in an international match on 24th April 1996 away to Estonia?
I have a feeling that's going to be a very, very strange one. We'll start with Tottenham against West Ham. Geoff, you're a West Ham fan. I'm a Tottenham fan. Very, very strange. Tottenham 3-0 up after 15 minutes. West Ham get the draw 3-3 after 94 minutes. Explain.
Well, I think the explanation is that Tottenham came out in the second half and didn't approach the game in the same way they did in the first half. First half was all high energy, lots of movement, and Harry Kane was just absolutely brilliant in that first half. The best performance by any player in the Premier League this season, I think. But Tottenham just seemed to treat the second half like a training match. They sat back and said to West Ham, OK, you can have that 3/4 of the pitch. Let's see what you can do. And gradually, as the game wore on and West Ham got more into the game, it started to look dangerous. But there's no way that you should go into the 82nd minute 3-0 up and not win the game, to be honest. It was a mixture of, I don't know, just carelessness, I think. Yeah,
of course, among Tottenham fans, there's a mourning and a wake and a sort of dissection of how could we let this happen, how Spursy, there's this word that we use, typical Spurs, bottling it. Arsenal fans, for some reason, on social media, getting all involved and excited about it.
Why? It's got nothing to do with them.
Well, exactly. I mean, they lost the day before, and yet they're revelling in Tottenham's misfortune during that game. And, it's 8 games unbeaten now. We did get a point out of it, but we were 3-0 up. It was careless. I said to you when the team sheets were being shown, when we were watching the match, Aurier and Sanchez are playing, and I said there's some liability and possible red cards there. Well, it wasn't red card, but they both had particularly bad games, I feel.
Well, yeah, I mean, Serge Aurier's an accident waiting to happen, and Spurs need to replace him. Sanchez, the own goal that he got, he nearly did 5 minutes before. So it was a surprise to me that he went for that ball, having gone for the one earlier and put it narrowly wide for a corner. Why he did it again? But I don't know. You have to say, and I don't like Mourinho, as we all know, but he got the summary just right. He said, well, it's football.
Yes, I watched the post-match interview with Mourinho and, of course, David Moyes, who still looked terrified, even though he just got a great result. And I thought Mourinho was both logical and correct and magnanimous. And I thought, again, what's happening? But he did. He said that's football and these things happen. And he said there were no. And he also has said that I'm not. There's no individuals that I'm going to blame or pull out on this. It's a team thing. We have to get back into the game, and that's that. And he said that West Ham were lucky, but probably deserved the luck. Kind of, I think he means that we helped them out there a little bit. But Sanchez and he did go for that header when possibly you'd think he'd have been frightened off doing it. You got a free kick, which I don't think should have been a free kick, but nevertheless given away by Aurier. The free kick came out of the box. Winks took it out of the box. The ball got away from him and Lanzini got to it first. Did Winks pull away a little bit? Because he's getting some blame from Tottenham fans.
I think he did pull out of a challenge, but I can understand why. We've seen a few red cards recently given to players who would not have got a red card 5 years ago for the challenge because the follow-through ended up taking out the player. And I think that was in his head. And besides which, okay, Lanzini's 22 yards out, going to hit the ball first time. Chances are it's going into Rose's head anyway. But Lanzini is the most skillful player in the Premier League, maybe. Certainly one of the top 3. So if you wanted to put money on anybody to make that shot, it would be him. But still, 8 times out of 10, it's going into Rose's head, isn't it?
You reap what you sow. There's something I want to talk. Gareth Bale came on. We'll talk about that in a moment. But one Tottenham fan on Twitter at that moment tweeted, "We bring on Bale, they bring on Lanzini. Ha ha ha." And Declan Rice retweeted it with, "That aged well."
Absolutely. I mean, we don't know what happens, what's been happening in training, but Lanzini is one of the best inside forwards in the world, and why he's sidelined by Moyes the way he is one of the reasons why I think Moyes has got to go. Sadly, the one result of this result is it gives him another 6 months in the job, but Lanzini should be on the pitch all the time.
We went 3-0 up, and you and I have discussed before that West Ham have a much better squad than possibly they are credited for. And also, there is this feeling that, it's West Ham, we're bound to win. But I think West Ham are a better team, again, than people credit them for. And you kind of think they're not cannon fodder, but they are a team you should beat. Like West Brom or Fulham or Burnley, they're sort of one of those teams where you should get points against. But you look at that squad, used by Moyes or not, it's a lot better squad than you think, and they probably deserve the position they're in right now.
Yeah, I think so. If line the players up against any other team's players, and we're a top 8 side. Not top 6 side, but we should be, 8th or 7th. And we've got very, very good players. Too many good inside forwards, and that's the problem with the recruitment over the past 3 years. But it's on paper, it's a great squad. The question is, why has the manager not got the best out of these players?
I tend to agree. He's a very, very good, on paper very good, but he doesn't put them on the grass, does he? That's the problem. Let's talk about two of the big names in the Tottenham squad. First of all, Harry Kane, who, sadly, it was overshadowed, probably had one of the best games he's ever had in his life, I think. He was sensational, Harry Kane, and it's almost a shame, not for you because you're a West Ham fan, but almost a shame Tottenham didn't win that game so that we could talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, I thought it was a complete performance. It was like getting back to football as you used to play it as a child. He just went out there as a footballer, and his starting position was just that, a starting position, and he went where the space and the ball dictated, and he was very creative and a fantastic finisher. It was the complete performance. Best performance in the Premier League this season.
Yes, he was brilliant, I have to say. And for a Tottenham fan, I don't know what to say about that game. 3-0 up after 15 minutes. I kind of felt, oh dear, that's a bit early to be going ahead. So Harry Kane hit the bar and Gareth Bale came on and scuffed a shot.
Yeah, but then Bale also wriggled through 3 defenders and should have scored and came incredibly close to scoring. So any of the rubbish that you read online about Bale disrupted the shape or the tactics or anything else is complete crap. Anybody who watched the game saw that Bale played quite well when he came on, and there's certainly nothing negative about it. He should have buried that shot, but I think if it had gone inside the post, maybe Fabianski had it. That is football, and I think all Tottenham have got to do is get back to how they played in that first half and keep their energy levels up, because when they move the ball quickly, they're very, very dangerous.
Yes, I mean I was heartily disappointed, obviously, but I'm not disappointed with most of the performances. I do have questions about Aurier and Sanchez a little bit, but we have other players. And I thought Bale, that was superb the way he wriggled through those 3 players. It was classic vintage Bale. I said he scuffed the shot, but to be fair, he was under pressure from the defender, who I think quite legally and correctly and professionally leant against him a bit, and I think that put him off a little bit. If that had gone in, he would have been a hero and everything. He also tracked back a lot, and I did notice he was quite commanding in the sense that he was saying to other players around him, he was turning around and saying to the defender behind him, I'll cover this, you go further back. And he was tracking back on that right wing. He made a lot of effort, I thought, and for a player who's hardly played for a while, I'm very optimistic about Gareth Bale. I thought he looked comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a great acquisition, and I think he'll do very well for Spurs this season. Definitely.
All right, so that was Tottenham 3, West Ham 3. Nobody expected that. There were 6 draws, however, during the weekend, during the 10 games. One of them being Chelsea drew 3-3 again against Southampton. Unbelievable. I mean, that's the second 3-3 draw they've had this season, and the second time, obviously, they've let in at least 3 goals. And you've always said it's Kepa, the keeper. But there is a frailty in their defence, clearly. Are Chelsea going to be a top 4 contender, or unless they change their keeper? Why wasn't Mendy playing?
Mendy was injured during the week, and that's why Kepa was in, and Kepa was at fault for at least 2 of the goals. I don't agree that there's the big problem in defence. I think the problem is in transition from attack to defence. It highlights the problem of having Jorginho there, because he's just not fast enough to cover. He occupies a position on the team sheet that suggests he should be there as a holding midfielder, but he never is. He's absent without leave every match, and it's that transition into defence that Chelsea have a problem with, not the defence itself. They're not conceding. Last season, the facts are that only City conceded fewer shots on target, and only Liverpool conceded fewer shots per match. The problem is not the defence. Like we're talking back 4 and back 4, because the problem is the goalkeeper. If you concede 50% of the shots on target as goals, you're going to struggle. And with Kepa, that's exactly the situation they're in. So he's the problem. Same as Everton's problem with Pickford. That final goal that Liverpool got, he got his full hand to the ball and managed to push it in his own goal. And this is the sort of thing Kepa's been doing for 2 seasons. And if you look at Pickford's stats, which I think you mentioned last week, he's been shocking for the past 3 years.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about keepers. I think we should talk about them because Kepa flapping about. That final goal from West Ham against Tottenham, the Lanzini strike from 40 yards out, unstoppable. Lloris got a hand to it, which I thought was quite incredible. Full credit to him. But then you've got Kepa, who doesn't seem to move and then flaps about. And then Pickford, who I don't think should ever be in the England squad, let alone Everton.
Yeah, if you want to watch something sort of technically with goalkeepers, the dive by a goalkeeper should be 1 step, 2 step dive every time. 1 step, 2 step jump. And you watch both Pickford and Kepa, they should dive from a standing start. They don't do the 2 steps, and that's why they don't save as many shots.
But you would hope and think that they would know that, and they would probably, they have a little bit of training during the week. They have professional goalkeeping coaches, and they have been goalkeepers since they were 12. If they don't get the basics like that, then we're in a lot of trouble. Let's talk about Pickford, though. It was Everton 2, Liverpool 2 in the, I'm going to call it the Merseyside derby, because Everton fans don't like it being called the Liverpool derby. But it was 2-2. Liverpool had a goal counted off for offside in the dying minutes, which would have made it 3-2. But the talking point is Pickford.
Yeah, and his common assault on Van Dijk. I mean, it was common assault. He made no attempt to get the ball. He was miles away from the ball, and he severely injured a player who's now going to be out for at least 6 months, so that's Liverpool's championship defence gone, and he gets off with it scot-free because of some technicality in the laws. Oh, the referee saw it. Well, if the referee saw it, why the fucking hell didn't he send him off? It was the most obvious sending off decision you will ever see in a football match, and Oliver's standing there 6 yards away staring at it and didn't send him off. I mean, I can understand Liverpool fans getting up in arms and making all sorts of accusations, because you've just got to say, well, why the hell wasn't he sent off?
Yes, it was a shocking tackle, or attack, if you like, from Pickford. Everything about that is wrong, and I think we need to talk about VAR, and the standard of refereeing, to my mind, has plummeted since they took VAR on. I was one of those that was very, very pro-VAR. I'm very pro-technology and advancement in general, and I thought finally we'll get decisions that are accurate. But it just seems to mean that referees don't bother, or seem to have become lazy or lacking the strength to make decisions. But he saw it. He saw somebody being assaulted on the pitch and did nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, the standard of refereeing is absolutely appalling, and it's getting worse. I cannot understand it. There are examples in the world of sport everywhere where this equivalent of VAR is managed very, very well. Just think about rugby, where a team scores and the final pass might be forward, might not be forward, so the referee gives the try, and you hear him, because he's mic'd up to the TV, you hear everything the referee says throughout the whole match, and he says, "Oh, okay, Dave, can you have a look at that, see if it was a forward pass?" And this is the referee being in charge, and then you hear the conversation between the referee and the referee who's doing the rugby version of VAR, and the guy says, "No, you're okay, it was a try." Okay, he gives a try. Everybody respects the referee because the referee is making the decision. And if the referee gets it wrong, as quite often happens in cricket, in their version of it, they've got no problem with holding up their hand saying, well, okay, we got it wrong, and changing the decision. But again, you hear the conversation between the umpire on the pitch and the umpire doing the TV VAR thing. Sorry, Phil, you're going to have to change your decision. It was actually out. Okay, fine. No, the referees, the umpires in cricket don't care. The referees in rugby don't care if they've given the wrong decision. They gave what they saw. Somebody else with more camera angles can say, well, actually, okay, we think it was this or we think it was that. And because it's up on a big screen where you can see it, and because you can hear the conversation, you know it's honest. What we saw the other day was not honest. It's impossible for any referee to look at that and do anything other than give him a red card. And yet, and faced with the chance of correcting it afterwards, the Premier League and everyone goes, oh, well, because the referee saw it, we can't do anything. Oh, that is absolutely pathetic. What happened there was the referee gave the result that the referees, Mike Riley and the referees' limited company wanted.
Absolutely. I don't think that anything you've said there I can disagree with, apart from to endorse everything you've said, because, first of all, what you said about rugby and cricket, VAR is there to back up and assist video assistant referee. Therefore, second to the referee, but to assist him. Why can't the referee say, I think that might have been a red card, but I'm not sure. Can we have a look at it? The referee goes to the pitchside monitor, and he's then in conversation with the person in VAR going, oh, what's that happening there? Let's look at another angle. What do you think? But what seems to happen is the referee goes to VAR and then just stands about waiting, and he doesn't even know what they're talking about, till he's told, you were wrong, change it, because ABC. Or the alternative is, you mentioned Mike Riley, that the person in the VAR is too frightened to change the referee's decision, or the referee has somebody senior to him in the VAR box and he just goes to him and asks him. Somebody is scared of changing it, or somebody is scared of not changing it, either way, if you see what I mean. There seems to be a hierarchy among referees, and it does seem to be a bit of Mike Riley's boys' club.
Very much so. If you look at the referees and the extraordinary number of referees who are all from the north of England round Mike Riley is just amazing. And I said when VAR was introduced and Mike Riley introduced this rule that they can't go to the monitors which are there and available to use. And why doesn't he want the referees making the decision on the spot? And there's only one answer to that. The referees and VAR is being used to get the result that is wanted.
You would imagine, because we've said it before, VAR referees associations favour the bigger clubs. You'd imagine that they would have gone in favour of Liverpool with a couple of decisions. They didn't with the offside, and they didn't with the Pickford sending off.
The driver is not big club versus little club. It's where is the betting money all gone. Let's remember, every single weekend, betting in the Far East, the amount of money spent is greater than the whole of the TV contract for the next 4 years. Every weekend.
So it's corrupt and it's wrong. There's all sorts of things wrong with it. You mentioned it affecting Liverpool's title challenge. Do you think losing that point and losing Van Dijk is now going to make it almost impossible for them to win the league?
No, I think losing the 2 points obviously makes it a little bit harder, but losing Van Dijk does make it impossible. He is so far ahead of every other central defender, probably in Europe. He and Alisson, when they came in, changed Liverpool. But Van Dijk is the one that really, really matters in this. And yeah, I think Liverpool's championship defence has just gone.
Well, apparently, according to statistics, Van Dijk is top for most Premier League clean sheets. There's only Ederson can match that, and he's a goalkeeper. Since he joined Liverpool, he has the best success rate of any player involved in over 100 duels, 75% nearly. Best aerial duel success rate. In 95 games, this is the one I wanted to mention though, in 95 games, he's only been beaten by an opponent 8 times. So he's going to be a tremendous loss for them. They're going to really, really miss him. I mean, he's also scored 10 goals, by the way, since joining Liverpool. So not just one of the best defenders around. So if that opens it up a bit, the chasing pack who keep drawing 3-3 or whatever, who's the most likely? Because Aston Villa have the best record so far.
Aston Villa have the best record in Europe. Played for, won for, goal difference plus 10. The only club near them is Milan, who have played for, won for, goal difference plus 8. Aston Villa are the best team in Europe.
It's been a long time since anybody's heard that. Obviously, they can't keep that up. I mean, they're putting points on the board to avoid relegation. They look very good, though, against Leicester, I have to say. Who are the contenders, then? Liverpool have suffered a big drop there with Van Dijk being out. Tottenham look shaky in second halves of matches. Chelsea, very, very weak because of their keeper situation. And Man United don't look what they should do. So who is the contender? Is it Everton?
My tip for the top 4 at the start of the season were Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United and Chelsea in that order. Take Liverpool out of that. Do you still have the top 4 but in a different order? I think you do. We have only had five match weekends, haven't we? And it's 38 that counts. And usually at the start of the season there's somebody unusual at the top and there's somebody unusual at the bottom. Manchester United being one of those. The only question I've got, really, I mean, Liverpool will not win the league without Van Dijk. Manchester United, will they be able to keep having lucky stroke penalty VAR decisions going in their favour for the whole of the season? All the words coming out from training about Manchester United is that squad is very unhappy. The squad don't rate Solskjaer. Other, European managers, very famous European managers, saying he's not up to it. They've tried to placate Fernandes by making him captain for the match against PSG, but he's clearly not happy. Pogba clearly isn't happy at the impact that Fernandes has. The rest of them aren't happy with Pogba. I mean, I have to say, if Solskjaer can keep all that lot together for 38 games, then he might deserve to finish in the top 3. But I don't think he can.
Yeah, he would be a genius manager if he could keep that, because we were speaking about it on Saturday. We do a radio show for 93.6 Global Radio on the Costa del Sol. We were talking about all these stories coming out of the dressing room, and one of them was Fernandes, because he doesn't think the training sessions are up to the level they should be, and he doesn't think that United have signed the players he was promised they'd sign when he joined. They haven't really made an impact on the transfer market, and other players are unhappy as well because they think Solskjaer's not up to it. As you say, that's going to put pressure on Solskjaer. He'll hear these stories. The board will hear the stories. There is some truth in it, I think. There must be. It's been mentioned by some very credible journalists with some very close ties to the club and sources. So imagine if they lose to PSG tonight and then go on and draw or lose their next game in the Premier League. Do you think Solskjaer will be gone then, or will they wait? And then who comes in?
Well, first, as everybody knows, I loathe the Manchester United with a passion. So I do hope Solskjaer stays for the whole of the season. But you would think that in the ordinary course of events, he'll be gone before Christmas. The problem that Ed Woodward has is, how many times can he keep firing the manager before someone turns around and says, well, actually, we think the problem's you? Because that is actually where the problem is. There's no director of football, ergo there is no strategy, there's no style of football they want to play, which means that their recruitment is up the creek without a paddle. They lurch from one good signing to another signing that turns out not to be good, and let's remember, they've spent £1 billion on transfers since Ferguson left. £1 billion. So let that sink in for a while and see quite how bad they are. Van der Beek they bought, who is a really, really good buy. He should be, along with Fernandes, the first or second name on the team sheet. And Pogba shouldn't be on it at all. He's a complete waste of space.
Yeah, Pogba is just not living up to the hype or the expectation. Fernandes, brilliant, but Donny van der Beek, stories coming out from his agent and from sources close to United, as they say, that he's also one of the ones that are unhappy. I can imagine that, when they got beaten 6-1 by Tottenham, he must have been thinking about, is there a clause in his contract that he can get out of and leave again? They did win 4-1 at the weekend, and one positive, I think, comes out of that and the last week about Man United. There's a lot of unrest, as you say, but Marcus Rashford, whether you agree with the honours list or not, and he did get an MBE, and if anybody deserved it, he did, because there are others that don't. I'm looking at Ian Botham, for example, who was made a lord for some bizarre reason. Marcus Rashford got an MBE, and I thought it was very well deserved, whatever you think of the honours list and all that. It's not stopped him in his campaign. He fed, or helped to feed, 1.3 million children on the poverty line with school dinners during the school holidays. But he also made an absolutely superb back heel for Manchester to assist Manchester United's third goal and scored the fourth. And if anybody deserved the attention for that, it's him. So I just thought we just ought to say, well done, Marcus Rashford, MBE. What a wonderful human being he is.
Couldn't agree more. And he's an excellent footballer as well. Yeah, I mean, well done to him. And he's putting our politicians to shame. There has to be said, it's quite an easy thing to do, to be quite honest, given the utter venal shower that they are. But anyway, yes, well done, Marcus Rashford.
So that's Manchester United in disarray, and some trouble in the dressing room. We don't know if they're going to be a top 4 club. Liverpool might come second. I thought Tottenham, having watched the last 3 or 4 games and the first half against West Ham, I started to believe we might be top 4, but we do seem to lose impetus as the game goes on. We will look at what else happened during the weekend. As I mentioned, Chelsea drew 3-3 with Southampton. They were winning as well, 3-1 up, I believe. So not great there. Man City narrowly beat Arsenal, who are still just ahead of Tottenham, but Arsenal still not convincing. Not for me.
No, I agree. I think they are better than I expected them to be, but they're not convincing at all. And the groundsman does appear to have had some impact with them. When they're playing through the press, they have looked quite good at times this season. Can they keep it up for the whole season? That's the issue, really, isn't it? Yeah,
I don't fear them as a Tottenham fan at the moment, even though we gave away a 3-0 lead. The big result, though, I think at the weekend was Leicester 0, Aston Villa 1. Let's talk about Ross Barkley's impact.
Well, he's had very good impact. Two matches, and he's played extremely well in both. There are some players who fit better into a medium or small team where they can be the big the big star. And James Rodriguez at Everton is another one. And he seems to have found a place where they like him, he likes them, he's happy, he's playing well, and good luck to him. It was a very good buy by Villa to get him, and it's paying dividends already.
Yeah, watching the game, I thought he was a bit quiet, possibly quieter than the first game we played, but he scored a magnificent goal that won the game. But Jack Grealish, every time you looked up at the screen, he was being fouled. But he's fast and he's skillful, and the combination of Grealish and Barkley and some of the other players as well made Aston Villa actually very pleasant to watch. They played really, really nice football against Leicester. And as you say, best team in Europe now. They are sort of almost saving themselves from relegation before Christmas.
Well, at the end of the season, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you got your points, does it? You've just got to get your points. And there are no drop points at the end of the season. It's every point you got matters. So they're aiming at the 35, 36 points, and they've got 12 of them already. So they're well on their way. So it just goes to show that when I make a prediction, you should of course ignore it, because they were one of my 3 to be relegated.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose my point is that they've got those 12, almost a third of what they need to stay up before Christmas or whatever. But once you've got almost enough to stay up very early, or you then know that you only need a few points every few games, the pressure's off and they can start actually believing in themselves and maybe push for a top half of the table. If they play like they did against Leicester, I don't see why not.
Well, I think they're playing as if they do believe in themselves, and they've decided, obviously, that last year was a huge mistake, and they don't really understand what went wrong, but they're not going to do it this season. And I think buying Barkley was a very good buy. So if you've got Grealish, McGinn and Barkley in your midfield, you're not going to do too badly, are you?
No, I think that was a good result for them again, as you say, top of the table in terms of European football. Really, they're the best. Wolves won again. That is now for Wolves 9 points out of 5 games, putting them in 6th place. They beat Leeds, who have also looked pretty good.
No, Leeds have looked very good in every game they've played. But the downside to the style is that, if the opposition get it right, they can lose goals, which we saw at Liverpool and their second match. And yesterday, okay, it was 1-0, but I think Leeds' performance was good enough that they have nothing to worry about.
Now, looking at the bottom of the table, talking about Aston Villa and Leeds, Aston Villa nearly went down, Leeds have just come up. Burnley, who played 1 game less, and Sheffield United and Fulham all have 1 point each. Which one of those is going to survive?
Oh, Burnley and Sheffield United will survive. Fulham are down, and they were down before they kicked the ball this season. Yeah, I think Fulham and West Brom go down. My tip for Villa doesn't look so good now. Don't think it will be Burnley, but you go up to 15th, and Man United still 1 point behind Crystal Palace. Out of all of those, Brighton are looking good but not getting enough points, and maybe it'll be between them and Crystal Palace for that 3rd position. But I think Burnley and Sheffield United are I think they are safe. Their manager's good enough to keep them up.
Yeah, Fulham. I mean, even the bookmakers paid out last week on Fulham being relegated. That's how certain they were. So Burnley and Sheffield United, do you think are safe? I want to talk about their managers and go back because Aston Villa have Dean Smith, who Kirk, our friend, who's also a West Ham fan, said he's not convinced that Dean Smith is a Premier League manager. Not that he shouldn't be, he's just not convinced of his credentials as yet. What do you think of Dean Smith?
I like Dean Smith. First of all, he's an Aston Villa supporter. Grew up watching them from the stands. He lives and breathes the club, and you look at their performances this season, and all of those performances may show Kirk to be wrong. To be quite honest, I think he is. If you put the points on the board, then by definition you are good enough to be a Premier League manager, and he's doing it. So yes, the managers of Burnley and Sheffield United are both excellent managers, and they'll get their teams out of trouble.
All right, and then you mentioned there Brighton, who were big tip to go down last season, who I think look great when they're playing football, but as you say, they don't get the points on the board. Like Aston Villa, they've signed a couple of players that were looking for time on the pitch. Lallana, good signing. And then a couple of days ago, they signed Danny Welbeck, who was a free agent, not scored many goals in the last few years, had a lot of injuries, but I think he's on a free. Do you think that's a good signing for Brighton? Will he make a difference?
Well, if they're paying him on a pay-per-play basis, then I think he's a good signing. Yes, I think it is a good signing, but if you look at Danny Welbeck's goals to games ratio, the only way he ever got into the England side was because he played for Manchester United. No other centre forward, no other striker with a goals per game ratio as low as his gets to play for England unless they're playing for Manchester United. But Brighton just don't have the strikers to put the ball in the net. Mopé is a very streaky forward. He looks very good one week, disappears the next week, looks very good again. And maybe with Lallana there as well, then Welbeck the two of them can push Brighton on to convert very attractive, very good performances into points, because that's the thing they're missing at the moment. They've looked very good, and if you watched Brighton every match this season, you'll have been watching some very good football. Just not enough points. All
right, those are the games this weekend. We're going to move on and have a look at the games coming up. I did just want to mention, though, Geoff, something that we didn't talk about very much, is the Premier League and Sky deciding to charge £14.90, £15 to watch extra matches. If you've got a Sky subscription, they put extra games on. Newcastle fans, a lot of fans are upset about it. Newcastle fans decided, because that was one of the games, Newcastle-Manchester United, one of the extra games that you had to pay this £15 for, Newcastle fans decided not to watch the match. They weren't going to pay for it. They gave the money to a local charity, to a local food bank, and they raised £20,000.
Well done them, but if they expected that to have any impact on Mike Ashley at all, then they're really barking up the wrong tree, because I don't think he cares. But people have questioned the size of the fee, $14.95 or whatever it is, and I think that's really a function of economics of broadcasting. It will cost Sky as much money to put that match on as to put on the main match they've got. But there'll be far fewer people watching it. Ergo, to get their money back, they've got to charge that much more. If you then turn the thing on its head and say to these fans, okay, your choice is paying 35 quid up at Newcastle to go into the ground and watch it, or you can watch it at home with 3 or 4 of your mates for 15, then it's not that bad a deal, is it? Let's face it, who's got 5 mates or more?
Yeah, because you're not allowed to have more than 5 people round at your house. But to be honest, I'd be struggling, yeah. I'd be struggling to find 5 people to come and watch it with me. Just a couple of things before we move on. From Europe, the first thing is 39-year-old Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored both goals in the Milan derby. 39. He did say, if I had the body of a 20 or 30-year-old, no one would stop me. But to be honest, I'm 39 and no one can stop me. And he's quite right.
Yeah, and he also referred to himself as God in that conversation. Well, he might be right for all we know.
He's got as good a chance of
I mean, he's a phenomenal player, and over the past 10 years or so, when people have been going on about Ronaldo being the best player in the world, Ronaldo was never even the second best player in the world. Ibrahimovic was behind Messi. And this weekend, incidentally, was the first time in 20 years that both Barcelona and the big girls' blouses, who also go under the name Real Madrid, for some reason I don't understand, they both lost on the same weekend and failed to score while losing on the same weekend. Cadiz beat Real Madrid in Real Madrid, and Barcelona lost to Getafe 1-0. An unusual weekend.
Yeah, following which, by the way, Ronald Koeman, new manager of Barcelona, having watched his team lose, said Lionel Messi, the best player in the world, could be playing better.
Well, that might well be true. I didn't see the match. But do you not think that Koeman, given that he was appointed the way he was, would be better off trying to get the best player in the world on his side? You know, why? Look, the first thing I would do if I was appointed as manager of Barcelona would be sit down with Messi and say, okay, right, how are we going to do this? How should we play? What can we do to do this? Instead, the very first thing he did was insult him. Yes. He ignored him, then insulted him, and then expects him to play for him. You know, it's a two-way street. Any manager has to get his team on side. Not just manager of a football team, but in every sort of business. You get your people on side. You get them working for you. You catch them doing things right. You praise them for when they do things right. And then they carry on doing things right. But to start the way Koeman did was, to ignore Messi, to insult him, to then ignore and then insult Suarez, who was Messi's best mate. I mean, it defies belief. Are they trying to force Messi out? Because the reason I say it is this. Barcelona, like the big girls' blouses, is a club. And the financial performance can come back to the directors of the club. It's not like a limited company where the company is different from the directors. The directors can be held legally liable for all the debts of the company. The president is not allowed to end his term in office, his stewardship, with the club in a significantly bad position. Now, Barcelona are to all intents and purposes bankrupt. If you're carrying on only with the support of the banks, who can turn around at any day and say, actually, we quite like our money back, then Bartomeu, the president of Barcelona, could find himself in prison. And they are so much in debt. Is it possible that the only way out for Bartomeu is to sell Messi?
All right, let's have a little look what's happening this weekend. The next round of Premier League games starts off with quite a tasty game on Friday evening. Aston Villa against Leeds United.
Best team in Europe against Leeds. I think it'll be a great game, and I'll be tempted to break the new tradition and go for a 2-2 draw, not a 3-3 draw.
Yeah, I think that's a draw. I think Villa, good luck to them. They're gonna eventually come up a team that doesn't capitulate in front of them. On Saturday, West Ham are at home to Manchester City. The way they've been this season are weaker team than possibly Tottenham as opposition, but in general are a much stronger team. Aguero is back. I think that's West Ham 1, Man City 3.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Aguero is the difference, and maybe De Bruyne will be back as well, because De Bruyne was missing this week. So if he's back and Aguero's back, I don't think there's much down for West Ham, to be quite honest.
Fulham against Crystal Palace. Fulham might snatch a draw for me, though.
Yeah, it's possible, isn't it? I'll go for an away win. I'll go for 2-0 to Palace.
And then possibly the game of the weekend, Manchester United against Chelsea.
Well, Chelsea are going to score, aren't they? And they're going to concede. Oh, I really don't know. I'll go for a Chelsea win 3-1. I have to say, with a caveat, it depends when Manchester United get their penalty.
So the one is a penalty. I'm going to go for, this is quite unusual, but I'm going to go for Manchester United 3, Chelsea 2. Then we've got Liverpool against Sheffield United. That's a Liverpool win for me.
It should be, shouldn't it? Put a score on it, though. That's the difficult thing. 3-1 to Liverpool.
Yeah, I think 3-1 sounds about right. Southampton, Everton.
That could be anything, but I will say 2-1 to Southampton.
Oh, you think Everton are going to get beaten for the first time this season? That would be. I'm going to go for Everton 2-1. Then we've got Wolverhampton Wanderers against Newcastle. I think that's a Wolves win.
Should be, shouldn't it? Yeah, 2-0.
And then we've got Arsenal at home to Leicester. I'm hoping that's a Leicester win.
I'm hoping it's a Leicester win, but it will, again, depend on does Ndidi play. If indeed he plays, Leicester win. If they don't, then Leicester lose.
And then before we record another podcast, on Monday next week, Brighton against West Brom. 2-1 to Brighton for me, that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout, actually. Yeah.
And finally, Burnley are at home to Tottenham. Burnley 0, Tottenham 2. That's my prediction.
I think the result's right. I think it'll be 2-1, though.
To Tottenham. Right, great. All right, that's all we've got time for, apart from Geoff's trivia question and the answer.
Okay, well, the question is, on 24th of April 1996, Iceland played away to Estonia, and in that match, what did Arno Gudjonsson and Ida Gudjonsson do, which is unique and has never happened before? Ida Gudjonsson came on as a substitute to replace his father, Arnor. And there is a little backstory to this, that the head of the Iceland Football Association had ordered the Iceland manager not to allow them on the pitch at the same time. He wanted this to happen in a home match, which I thought was petty and selfish, and as it turned out, in fact, because Ida Gudjonsson broke his leg in an under-18 game, and by the time he recovered, his father had retired, so they never got the chance to play together for Iceland.
That's actually quite a sad ending to that story, but also there is something very beautiful about, as you put it, the son coming on to replace the father, as is so true in life. But a beautiful story.
Did, of course, happen in a Roy of the Rovers. A Roy of the Rovers episode, yes, where Roy's son came on to replace him as a sub, yeah.
Brilliant. So son comes on to substitute his father in a professional football match. Don't think that's happened very often, apart from in fiction, as you said. That's all we've got time for. We'll be back next week. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
And that was Hitting the Bar, the football podcast.